Welcome back to Rolando Estacado. My name is Rolando, and for today's episode, we are going to be covering the Bowie Tomahawk, a classic combination that I just love to work with, love to share, and I can't wait to share with you how these two are going to work together. Some of you have already seen how I like to work with the Bowie Tomahawk, and it really is a matter of which one you're comfortable with in terms of whether the Bowie is going to be primary or secondary, or whether the Tomahawk is going to be primary or secondary. For my estacado practice and for my own personal preference, in my estacado curriculum, I like having the Bowie as the primary for a very simple reason. The way Bill Bagwell designed this Bowie for me, which is the right-hand dedicated Bowie, and he called it the shock and awe, the way it occupies centerline, I really like how it occupies centerline, but also I like how multi-angular it is when it comes to its attack. There's the way it snap cuts forward is just so powerful, but also the way it moves with the back cut, really powerful and very versatile as well. As you can see, I've done quite a bit of work with him. There's some pattern of developing on him already over the years of use. He's the guy that I really like to use when it comes to primary for a Bowie Tomahawk combination. Now, what I would like to use for the Sayoc Winkler Tomahawk as my secondary is actually going to be the compact. And this is my thought process as to why I like using the compact as my secondary. Because of the handle being relatively short compared to its big brother, the full size, as you can see, it's quite a bit more compact. I'd say maybe another 3 inches where this handle happens to be more compact. The reason why this is important because in my own practice, when I'm doing Bowie Tomahawk work, I like to hold the compact Tomahawk in a way that's relatively choked up in that pistol grip, where the handle, which is actually designed after pistols, where it's nice and ergonomic and I can choke up on it. But the cool thing about the compact, which adds to its versatility, is that much less, 3 inches on this part, ensures that this part of the Tomahawk doesn't get in the way of the movements, i.e. once in your close quarters, you're not all of a sudden gonna inadvertently disarm yourself. Because sometimes when you're moving and you're coming in this way, and then you all of a sudden do something like this, sometimes it just gets in the way. Something where it's just a little extra because you have that much more handle to deal with. The fact that it's shorter, the fact that you have just enough for a nice puño, but also just enough so that if somebody tries to handle it, there's not going to be enough. But also you have more than enough weight on this side of the tomahawk so that if it does get caught, you can also have enough leverage to take it away. So I like to work with the compact because it is shorter. Technically, you kind of have more leverage. So now what I'm happy to share with you is how this beautiful Bagwell dog bone style Bowie is now going to move with this spectacular and very powerful compact Sayoc Winkler Tomahawk. Thank you for letting me share, and I hope you enjoy this video.
Modern Bowie knife and tomahawk methodologies would not be accessible for us if it were not for the work of 3 key figures. First is Master-at-Arms James Keating, who through his Riddle of Steel introduced us to the modern Bowie combatives that we know today. Secondly, we also have American bladesmith founder and legendary Bowie knife maker Bill Bagwell, who made my custom Bagwells but also mentored me in the finer aspects of Bowie knife fighting. There is also Colonel Dwight McLemore, who published 2 major works on Bowie and tomahawk fighting. I had the opportunity to train with him in the early 2000s, and if you can, try to get your hands on his published works because they are very important in this curriculum. Most of all, my instructor and friend Armando Basulto, who is the source for all things martial as far as my personal development is concerned. He certified me in Jeet Kune Do and Filipino martial arts, and he was the one who introduced me to Bowie knife and tomahawk fighting and most of all, to Sayoc. The Bowie and Tomahawk methodology is the most advanced curriculum in my Rolando Estocado practice. It requires the utmost awareness in personal safety as well as those who are around you when you train, because these are very sharp tools. So please take the utmost care in your movement and also in the care of your environment. The Bowie Tomahawk methodology in my practice is something that I consider within the context of melee fighting. So it is always with the Bowie coming up and then the tomahawk going off to the side, because the idea is that I am in a melee situation. So it is within this context that I want you to think about the practice of the Bowie and the tomahawk. Occupy center line with lead shoulder dynamics with the Bowie. I always set it up so that the tomahawk is right behind to take over that center line. So my lead shoulder dynamics occupy center line while the Bowie is actually out of sight line for the target. So I occupy with the Bowie back cut from the outside, which sets up the rear shoulder to occupy center line and get into close quarters. Once I'm in close quarters, it is actually very important for me to have an exit strategy. An exit strategy is going to be handled by the primary weapon, which is going to be the Bowie knife, which is set up for low line attacks as well as upline. So when I go ahead and take care and exit, I go ahead and do an upline attack to occupy center line with the tip of the Bowie. This is a very strong position for me so that once I exit, I am ready for the next exchange in a melee context. With the Bowie back cut on the outside, I occupy center line with the tomahawk, then I flourish out so that I am back in range and ready for the next exchange. So I Bowie back cut to enter, and once I bridge that gap, watch how the reversal on the outside line of the shoulder actually distracts him. So I Bowie back cut, I go ahead and take care of the weapon hand, I take care of close quarters and exit with that reverso, which is out of sight line once I exit from close quarters. This is a very powerful combination that I like to put together. Never do any of the Sinawali work with Bowie Tomahawk simply because you lose a lot of range. So again, it's always one shoulder forward while another shoulder is set up for success. This front shoulder primary position is very strong for me because it gives me a lot of options for snap cuts, thrusts, and back cuts. That shoulder is what occupies center line, not the tool. So now when I have this, I can go ahead and do a low line attack and then come up with the tomahawk and come back up with an upline attack to once again occupy the center line with the shoulder. So once I have those kinds of alignments in place with my anatomy, I can take control of the entire altercation. Once I'm inside and I have control of the altercation, I can do an upline reverso, which takes care of the close quarter position. Once I am here, I can do a low line attack and then come right back up with an upline attack, and then when I disengage from the altercation, I am ready again for the melee. I'm always done with some sort of exit strategy so that I can move on to the next altercation and exchange. In this case, an inquartada, which sets me up to crash the line with the tomahawk. Mind you, crashing the line with the tomahawk is something very powerful and I happen to like to do, and it's relatively dramatic. However, if I just crash with the tomahawk again as part of the practice, I'm completely left open, so it's important for me to have a way to flourish out and reoccupy center line. So when I come in, I leave myself open. That's no good. What I'm going to do instead is after that inquartada, I'm going to occupy with the tomahawk, then I'm going to crash in. This is a technique that I borrowed from Shinkaguryu, Japanese swordsmanship, where once I occupy center line with the shoulder, I crash and almost tackle the opponent, but I use the Bowie to control his weapon arm. I can reverso to the top line, then slash out with the tomahawk. Range management is the overarching principle in all of combat, and none more so than the Bowie and tomahawk methodology, especially within the context of a melee. At some point when you train, you're going to be tempted to hold the Bowie in an ice pick grip. Never do this. You will lose all range capabilities. This is an absolute no-no in Bowie knife fighting. Whenever I do the Bowie and tomahawk methodology, it is something that I really enjoy because it allows me to go outside of a dueling context and actually train for what I think this is designed for, which is melee fighting. So when you do melee fighting, not only are you using the full capabilities of the Bowie and tomahawk methodologies, but all principles relating to combat. So you're using good footwork, you're using 360-degree movement, you're using upline, low line, close quarters, long range fighting to put all of these combinations together. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around, stay tuned, more videos to come.